So the oven is one of the most important things when it comes to sourdough baking. This is different from normal baking. The reason it's different is because we need a super hot oven. A super hot oven is what gives us that really awesome rise, that last oven spring. They call it oven bloom, which is really cool because if you think about heat and yeast, temperature, as we go through this course, we talk a lot about temperature and time and whatnot, but heat from the oven gives the yeast its last opportunity to grow. And when that heat hits the yeast, it goes to the maximum that it can go, and then it seals, starts to bake, and firms up into the loaf of bread that we actually get to eat, which is really cool. I want to show you some apparatuses we use for the oven because it's really important to learn how to make the most of your bread. So steam is what we're trying to create, and home ovens are always trying to remove steam from your oven. So we have to work within that, get a few tools in place to harness the steam and to stop your oven from getting rid of it. So the one method that we like the most is our bread cloaks. And our bread cloaks that we use, we have an Emile Henry Le Pen, beautiful clay interior, enameled outside. The bottom of this is clay as well and has little grooves in it just to give a little bit of breathing to the loaf. It is a nice size. It's about 11 inches in diameter through here and quite big, so it will hold a very nice sized loaf. That is one option that we use to create steam, and I'll explain why in a sec. We also have this Lodge double cast iron pan system. So it's deep on the one side, shallow on the other. It's only about a 10-inch, and I do find it's a bit small sometimes for doing certain breads. It doesn't necessarily fit with an oval avatar as well as a boule. So I will often cook just the rounds in this one and the ovals in this one because it holds more. So the thing that I love about the cast iron one is the cast iron gets super hot. That's also the thing I don't love about the cast iron one because it gets super hot. Sometimes it tends to burn the bottom of our bread. Other method that we talk about is the sketchy method. And the sketchy method you will see in this class is where we actually pour boiling water on top of either a stainless steel pan or a cast iron pan. I have rocks in here. They were just rocks from my garden. You can feel free to find some lava rocks or barbecue rocks or whatever you'd like. We're looking for something that conducts heat. A stainless steel chain I've heard works really well also. So you would basically place these into your oven. I place it on the bottom rack of my oven, and I'll give you a little shot of what my oven looks like when it's in place. I place it on the bottom rack of my oven, and then I have my rack above that, which I keep a really heavy duty Cordylite pizza stone on top of there. My breads will then be loaded right onto the stone. I will have boiling water going in my kettle, and I will pour the boiling water on top of these preheated rocks and pan. That preheated rocks and pan act like a sauna, and so when the water hits it, you get this psh, fills the cavity of your oven with steam, and you only need steam for the first few minutes. So it works really, really well. Why do we need steam? Let's just answer that question right off the bat. Why do we need steam? We need steam because steam creates this little sort of softer layer on the outer edge of the crust. It keeps it soft and supple so that when that heat hits the yeast, it gives that last transfer spring and there's nothing inhibiting it. So the soft crust does that. When the heat hits the loaf, the moisture in the loaf evaporates, and then it gets condensed and contained into this little apparatus here, the bread cloak, and then the steam sits on the layer of the bread grows it rises to its last ability, and then the crust becomes very thin. If you don't have steam, the crust can be really thick and we get that chewy crust where you just can't really get through it. It should be a nice shattery soft crust. So that is the point of that. When you do the method with the rocks and the boiling waters, you only need steam for the first like 10 to 15 seconds, and that's enough to envelope the dough, even though it's open faced. Envelope the dough and just put that thin layer on it, allowing it to rise to its utmost potential and give you that thin crust. So that is the point. There are other methods that you can use to create steam if you don't have a bread cloak or like a double Dutch pan. That being a Dutch oven big Le Creuset double Dutch oven. So what you would do with this, as you would with all of these, is you would preheat these in your oven for a long time. I always tell you to preheat your oven for about 45 minutes before baking bread. And as I've reminded you in the past, don't waste that preheated oven. Roast some vegetables, roast a chicken, get your dinner prep going, and then when the oven has been heated for that time for whatever you're baking, then throw these apparatuses into your oven the last 15 to 20 minutes. They'll get nice and hot. If you're using a Dutch oven like this, you would just simply load your bread into a larger sheet of parchment paper and you would lower it down. Make sure at all times when you are working with these hot surfaces, you are wearing a nice silicone-based glove. Silicone I like because it helps with any kind of sticking. You do not want to be slipping anything that is at 500 to 550 degrees. So in our bread recipes, we tell you to preheat your oven for 45 minutes at the highest will go, full whack. That's 500 to 550 degrees depending on your oven. I tend to use convection oven. Other students of mine use regular oven. You do need to get to know your equipment. So the whole point of this is we want to create moisture. We want that steam to sit on our loaf so we get the utmost rise and the most beautiful oven spring and a nice thin crust. You can do that with a covered method. You can do that with our sketchy method with the rocks and boiling water on top. That method, the sketchy method, we will have to use if you're doing a bread like a baguette that doesn't fit into a cloak or other shapes. So that is about the oven. Preheat. Get your gear organized. Right before you're going to load your bread, that's when you will load your bread onto parchment paper. You will do your scoring, whether that's intricate or whether it's just purposeful, whatever your preference is. Get it right into the oven, either covered or the steam poured on top, and that is what's going to give you just an ultimate rise and the ultimate oven bloom that you're looking for. And I hope that this video helps you out. If you have any questions, you can always talk to us at the Sourdough Schoolhouse, hello@sourdoughschoolhouse.com, and we'd be happy to help you out. Have a wonderful day. Now you're seeing when I have my cloaks into the oven. I do 2 at a time, and so I have my Emile Henry often on the left, and I have my cast iron Lodge on the right, and these get preheated in the oven. I often will leave the rocks and the cordylite stone in there just as they are. And that's how we preheat them. Then we start loading our breads, going through the baking process. But that is what it looks like. And if yours looks any different, let me know. Shoot us videos or pictures of what you do for your bread. That would be awesome. And also, if you're using a Dutch oven, you can always improvise in a little different way. So good luck with your baking. So this is what the inside of my oven looks like if I'm going to be doing the sketchy method. I will have my cast iron pan here with some rocks in it, and I will have the stainless steel pan here with some rocks in it, and I have my cordylite pizza stone in the center. When I have this all preheated and I load my bread, I then pour boiling water over top of one or the other. The reason I keep 2 in my oven is I often do back-to-back baking. So you do not need to have 2 of them in there. 1 will be sufficient if you're intending on baking just a couple of loaves at a time. But what often will happen is if you are baking a lot of loaves at a time, then one may not have enough opportunity to completely dry and reheat before pouring water on it. So that's what it looks like when I'm doing the sketchy method.